Public safety meeting to order, please. First resolution is resolution number 501-2022. Upon recommendation of the Public Safety Committee at a special meeting held on the 9th day of November 2022, and of the Finance Committee, a special meeting held on the 9th day of November 2022. Due to shortage of vehicles to purchase, the Sheriff's Office was unable to purchase the vehicle from the vendor and price amount specified in Resolution 158-2022. So this resolution is, they found a car, but it's more than what the original quote was. Whereas the purchase for the vehicle will come from budgeted funds in an account for $45,000, account number, another account for $3,064.73, and another account for $2,013.62, for a total of $50,078.35.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Second resolution is number 502-2022, authorization to renew an agreement with the Drug Enforcement Administration Task Force. This contract, if any questions, they can ask the sheriff, but this is an annual contract. This just happened to come later than expected and has to be done before the next public safety meeting. So as a recommendation of the Public Safety Committee, a special meeting held on the 9th day of November 2022, and of the Finance Committee at a special meeting held on the 9th day of November 2022. Sheriff's Office is currently a member of the Drug Enforcement Administration Task Force, who disrupts the illicit drug traffic in the Capital District area, and whereas authorization to renew the Drug Enforcement Administration agreement from October 1st, 2022, September 30th, 2023 is being sought.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
I'm sorry, who's seconded? First and, you're not on the public safety committee.
Oh, sorry.
Need a second?
Yeah.
Nice try.
You can join in finance, Chris, but.
Okay.
Next meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. A motion to adjourn?
No, we have 503.
We do?
Yeah.
It's on the back, I think.
Sorry, they're kind of mixed up.
Oh.
There's 503, authorization to appoint an executive secretary of the Columbia County Traffic
Yeah,
Safety
the Advisory
Advisory.
Board, upon recommendation of the Public Safety Committee at a special meeting held on the 9th day of November 2022, and of the Finance Committee at a special meeting held on the 9th day of November 2022, whereas authorization is being requested to appoint John Gallo, the Stop DWI Coordinator, to the Columbia County Traffic Safety Advisory Board as Executive Secretary.
I'll move it.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Motion to adjourn?
Move it.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
And finance.
I'd like to call the special finance meeting to order. Resolution number 520-22, authorization to distribute the mortgage tax monies collected in the office of the county clerk.
Move it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, resolution number 501-2022, authorization to amend resolution number 158-2022. This is to do with the money for the year.
I'll move it. Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Resolution number 502-2022, authorization to renew an agreement with the Drug Enforcement Administrative Task Force.
Move it.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 503-2022, authorization to appoint an executive secretary for the Columbia County Traffic Safety Board.
I'll move it. Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Okay, I'm going to call the full board meeting to order. Please rise for a moment of silent prayer, followed by the salute of the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to request the clerk call the roll.
Bassett,
Here.
Weigelt, Holmes,
Here.
Simmons,
Here.
Stats, Adams, here, Metler, here, Collins,
Here.
Riley, Eldridge, here, Elsley,
Here.
Kirsten,
Here.
Livonia,
Here.
Cousin,
Here.
Mia,
Here.
Chemidas,
Here.
Mussman, here, Scalera, Guzzi,
Here.
Holtling, Morel,
Here.
Not,
Here.
Skoda.
2711 present, 824 absent.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I need a motion to pay the bills, accept the treasurer's report, file the minutes within the clerk's office.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I'd like to have Claire Cousins read a proclamation on the clean slate.
Hello, I hope you guys can hear me okay. I am in Puerto Rico, so I'm taking this meeting from a bathroom where it's nice and quiet. Whereas it is estimated that 2.3 million in New York State have criminal conviction records, and whereas people with criminal conviction records face thousands of civil barriers to employment, licensing, housing, and educational opportunities long after they have completed their sentences, and whereas many disparities, including race and socioeconomic discrimination, are rampant throughout the criminal legal system, and statistics and anecdotal evidence show that convictions for even low-level offenses result in cynical harm and structural instability for individuals, families, and communities. And whereas excluding individuals with criminal records from full participation in society through a system of perpetual punishment creates intergenerational trauma and exacerbates racial and economic inequality. And whereas people are far more likely to be discriminated against based on conviction record, and it has been estimated that people who have been to prison lose an average of $484,400 in earnings over their lifetime. And whereas it has been estimated that excluding individuals with conviction histories from the workforce costs the economy between $78 billion and $87 billion in lost gross domestic product, and whereas approximately 95% of incarcerated people return to their communities after serving their sentences, and giving people access to jobs, housing, education, and licenses to practice a trade increases their participation in the economy and reduces the likelihood that they will return to prison, thereby making our community safer. And only approximately 2,500 of an estimated 600,000 eligible people, or less than 5%, or 0.5%, have had their records sealed since New York's current application-based sealing law went into effect in 2017. And whereas a system of automatic sealing and expungement of criminal records is essential to provide relief to those who need it most, the Clean Slate Act, sponsored by Senator Zelnor Myrie and Assemblymember Catalina Cruz, would require that most criminal records be sealed automatically after a specified period of time. And whereas the Clean Slate Act would remove systemic barriers to stable housing, employment, and education, and allow millions of New Yorkers to participate fully in civic life in their communities. And whereas numerous other states, including Pennsylvania, Michigan, Utah, and Connecticut, have already passed Clean Slate legislation, now, therefore be it resolved. Members of the Columbia County Public Safety Committee, by consensus, hereby support the passage of the Clean Slate Act in the state legislature and call on the governor of New York to sign this legislation into law.
See, the reason it's with safety committee and not the entire board of supervisors.
Those committee was brought in.
Okay, Supervisor Cousins, thank you very much.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure to work with you guys. It was a great conversation. I look forward to having more conversations around this issue and further issues in the future. And I'm really happy to have this slate of supervisors to come before when I have issues that directly affect my folks. So Thank you for your participation.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to ask the clerk to read the resolutions.
Resolution 461 of 2022 to 476 of 2022 by Supervisor Helsley.
Mr. Chairman, I present these resolutions for adoption.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 477 of 2022 to 485 of 2022 by Supervisor Simmons.
Mr. Chairman, I offer these resolutions for adoption.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 486 of 2022 to 492 of 2022 by Supervisor Owens.
Mr. Chairman, I present these resolutions for adoption.
And I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 493 of 2022 to 498 of 2022 by Supervisor Knox.
Mr. Chairman, I offer these resolutions for adoption.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 499 of 2022 to 503 of 2022 by Supervisor Guzzi.
Mr. Chairman, I offer these resolutions for adoption.
And I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Do any supervisors have any other business to bring to the board? Oh,
Chairman? Yeah, I just wanted to recognize everyone in the county, particularly our election workers, for a well-run election yesterday. Everything I've heard is that the election day and the early voting process went really smoothly. So I just wanted to congratulate a lot of workers who went into it and a lot of staff. So I just appreciate that.
thank you. Okay, if there's, Supervisor,
Sorry to interject. For last night, I just wanted to thank Supervisor Batson for sharing the town of Ancrum's thoughts on the Climate Action Council ruling and municipal home rule as it applies to our forward progress with renewable energy siting. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? I do have some board appointments to make. We're going to appoint, and working with Michael Tucker from CEDC. We came up with our Affordable Housing Task Force. And I'll list them right now. We have Ron Knott and Brenda Adams, who are going to co-chair the committee. Dan Darafaldi from the Planning Board.
He said choke.
Choke chair.
Sorry.
Don't choke each other, please.
We'll do our best.
Dan Darafaldi, Ghent Planning Board. Robert Gibson from the Department of Social Services as a commissioner. Bill Hughes as a community leader. Meredith Kane, the Rojan Housing Task Force. Kirk Neller from Neller Insurance. Brandon Mullins from a building code inspector from the town of Livingston
And Germantown.
and Germantown. Rob Perry, City of Hudson Public Works. Tim Stalker, Columbia County Planning Board. Kelly Sweet, Berkshire Dakota Community Foundation. And Dennis Whitlick from Barless Wedrick Architects LLC. So that's our task force. There's 12 members. We felt that we need to keep it lean and mean so that they could, get their work done. But we also have an advisory resource committee that we're appointing. And that would be Bill Gerlach from the Columbia County Chamber of Commerce, William Fisher from Columbia County Fair, the Columbia County Fair Housing Officer, Al Belanchia, Columbia County Habitat for Humanity, Lisa Galena, Columbia Green Cooperative Extension, Claire Cousin, Hudson Catskill Housing Coalition, Chris Nardone, Columbia Green Workforce, New York, Michelle Tulo, City of Hudson Housing Justice Director, Adam Bosch, Hudson Valley Patterns for Progress, and Michael Borges, New York State Rural Housing Coalition. And this Housing Resource Committee, or the Advisory Committee, could expand in time. Mr. Tucker, do you have anything to add?
Mr. Chairman, I do want to thank the chairman and the other supervisors as we move forward with this housing initiative. I met today with Adam Bosch from the Pattern for Progress, who have done the initial study for CPC. And we are also in the process of reviewing 12 resumes that we've received for the Affordable Housing Coordinator at CPC. And Chairman, Supervisor Don, Supervisor Adam, and I are going to be doing five initial Zoom screening interviews. And we hope to have our first meeting in December. And if anyone would like a copy of the names the chairman listed, happy to leave them here for you on your way out. Thank you.
Also, I failed to mention, there's a slot for the Columbia County Association of Realtors, but we don't have the name attached to that as of yet, so.
The thought, Mr. Chairman, was that we didn't want to fill the 12 task force member seats with people whose day job it was to support housing, but rather to have community input as well as have the benefit of the professionals in the field in these various organizations and capacities as resources to the task force.
Thank you.
What are the chances Columbia County can do it? So the region's doing right now. Have you seen the line?
Okay, I'm going to ask representatives from CPL and Ray Jakowski to come up and this is a presentation on the OFA, potential OFA.
There's a switch on the front, right? Right on the box, knee height.
Right on the left.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. So tonight, here before you to review a study that was completed by consultant CPL. In 2021, the county undertook the preparation of a study to look at the ability of combining the Office of the Aging administrative area as well as the Philmont Kitchen into a single location located at the Fire Training Center. So with that, I just have a brief introduction of that, and then from there, I'll turn it over to John Hall, a principal of CPL, to actually review their findings. Next slide. So for those that obviously are aware as far as the logistics of the Office of the Aging has their administrative office at 325 Columbia Street. However, the nutritional center is located in the town, or my apologies, the village of Philmont, approximately 7.5 miles away. In addition to that, because of the lack of space, freezer space, refrigeration space actually at the nutrition center, unfortunately, there are coolers, exterior coolers located at both the DPW facility, located on 23B, as well as the public safety building as well. And from time to time, on a daily basis, it is required that the staff obtain their vehicles that are parked at the DPW, and there are currently 9 vehicles that are parked at the DPW. They then have to go off, obtain food product from those locations at the County Highway Department, as well as the public safety building, and then bring those out to the kitchen facility at Philmont for that food to be either prepared, or once it's prepared, bringing it back to the cooler for refrigeration or freezing, depending upon whether they're frozen or not. So again, the amount of travel that has to take place is very significant in the time when we're looking at climate change and we're looking at how we can potentially reduce carbon footprint on the areas. Those are aspects that need to be considered. And that was one of the items to try to see what could be done to streamline and bring them under one envelope in a better location that is more convenient to the various areas within the county to provide that food service as far as the Meals on Wheels program, which was a driving force of this. Next slide. So Patrice Perry was kind enough to provide me some general information with respect to the aging population in Columbia County. So again, as many of you realize, Columbia County has one of the oldest populations within New York State. That population of 65 and older has traditionally climbed in Columbia County and continues to climb. You can see 2015, based on some of the data that was provided through her office, and this is all based off information that she had gotten through census data. Back in 2015, there were approximately 13,500 residents 65 and over, and that is projected by 2030 to reach as many as 18,000. So this continued growth as far as the population or aging population is going to continue. In addition to that, it has been identified by the staff that the requirements and needs and the number of meals that are created on a daily basis continue to climb. Kevin McDonald had provided me some information indicating that in a 5-year period, including COVID, the number of meals had increased by a total of 36%. Now, although that has dropped slightly, it still represents a 25% increase over a 5-year period. Currently, we're producing 273 meals per day. In addition to that, there are also frozen meals that are done, and those are included in 30 runs throughout the county, the various locations. And again, most of those are occurring right from that particular location and then dispersed throughout the county based on the needs. Next one. Early on in the process, it was identified the original intent was to provide a location on the existing emergency services response training facility. It's a very large piece of land located adjacent to the county airport off of Grandin Eddy Drive in the Commerce Center. However, it was identified early on that due to significant site constraints, wetlands, water courses, and things of that nature, as well as the overall size of the building and the parking needs for that facility, that particular parcel would not be able to support that particular project. So therefore, we looked as an alternative, a preferred site located adjacent, and that's the site located in purple, that's currently owned by a private entity. They're under contract with CEDC as far as the purchase. And so it's a 6-acre parcel located adjacent to the Commerce Center, and being contiguous to the Fire Training Center, it does provide the ability of an interconnecting road as well as extending utilities, gas, water, and sewer to that particular site. And again, those items were identified during the feasibility study and were identified by CPL. So that just provides a very brief background as far as the work associated with the Office of the Aging and the basis of the feasibility study. At this point, I'd like to turn the microphone over to John Hall, a principal at CPL, to review their findings.
Who's doing?
It's coming.
So I'm John Hall, partner with CPL, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. We thought we might be here a tad sooner. I think COVID and a lot of other things have kind of delayed the final presentation of this. I think we finished the report up in March. And so the original, our understanding, building the understanding of what needed to go into this building was we needed to fully understand the program that starts with the kitchen. We fairly quickly understood that the site that had originally been targeted, as Ray said, was too small, not for the building, but for the parking and particularly the trucks that need to service this building. Just was not going to work. And we had wetlands and other environmental issues. So the group that we brought together was CPL and Food Service Design, FDSS, Food Design Services, to take a look at your existing facility and then understand fully what the need was moving forward into the future. So I'll go to the site plan for the next one. The building, as you can see, is fairly robust. This building represents more than the initial program. I'll get into that it represents not only the Office for the Aging and the Nutrition Center, but it adds in the Health Consortium was the group that was added later. And then by bringing it up to this site, it also gives us the potential to add a basement for storage. We could not put a basement down below because of a high water table and issues that would just make that an untenable issue. It would have cost a fortune to waterproof and such. So the 6+ acres gives us the room that we need to provide parking for visitors and users of the nutrition center and visitors to the Office for the Aging, as well as staff parking and plenty of room for trucks. It also gives us the opportunity to do a one-way flow through the nutrition center so that at the bottom of the plan, trucks will drop off the bulk produce, paper, meats, dairy, all the things that are heading for the kitchen. They work their way through the kitchen process and then go out the backside for the vans that are delivering the meals to all the various town sites and residences. So it gives us a chance to get one-way flow segregated from the visitor parking of people who are coming to visit the offices of Office for the Aging and Health Consortium. So I understand you're going to get a copy of this report so you can dive into it a little deeper. I was going to bring a 500 slide show, but decided not to.
Thank you.
So the site assessment issues, next slide. One of the big issues was by connecting it to the Commerce Park, we can get the utilities that we need, particularly gas and water and sewer at a capacity that can service this facility. And that's not a small thing when you're trying to operate a fairly large kitchen. And then obviously being on the main road, traffic accessibility is very good. Moving down 9H and so trucks don't need to negotiate Grandinetti Drive. So, there are no wetlands that we're aware of up on this upper kind of plateau that we sit on. So we shouldn't have any issues there. And the site is pretty clean for development. In developing the kitchen plan, should be the next slide should be dietary. Yeah, there it is. So we went into the building and clearly that building has served its day in court. It is deteriorating. It's going to require increasing maintenance costs to keep that building in play. Roofing, plumbing systems, heating systems are all kind of at the end of their useful life, and it's going to take some kind of more major investment to keep that building going where it is. But our mission here was to develop a program for a kitchen that could service I think the mission here needs to be understood in that this food service is unique in that it's a large volume of food that has to go out in a very tight window. Very different from a restaurant, which has a few tables at a time, going out over 4 or 5 or 6 hours. So, we need to get all 300 meals out of there in a pretty tight window and delivered still hot to their destination. So, a very different equation, if you will. The food service people, excuse me, we did a full interview of the dietary staff. They looked at all of the equipment, and there is some quite new pieces of equipment that we plan on reusing here. One of the remote freezers is in good shape. A number of smaller freezers that are located in the dining area are in good shape and are quite new and can be reused. But you don't want to go too far with that because you've got to stay in operation until the day you move. So that was an issue. We looked at the key to kitchen design for me has always been, I've seen restaurants operate out of a 300 square foot kitchen, and they do it because their equation is quite different. But you can grow a kitchen if you've got storage. If you've got dry storage, cold storage, frozen storage, you can maximize the production that you can get out of a basic set of equipment. So what we've done here is look at what the future needs were. If you tour the existing facility, they've got boxes piled on top of boxes on top of boxes. And so storage becomes a vertical issue, not very accessible, but they've got paper in with dry goods or paper in with dairy, and it's a mix of storage that feels uncomfortable. So our kitchen designer went through and developed an estimate for new equipment, and that's included here on the next page, I believe. It goes through each of the various pieces, what the things would be needed. Obviously, we need a very large hood for the heat producing equipment. That's tends to define the flow of the kitchen. Everything needs to come from supply to that hood area and then directly to the tray line. So he goes into great detail here on each of the facets of the kitchen. And he, at the end, I believe he's got a cost estimate, which is detailed as what's included. And I think the total was something on the order of $400,000 for food service equipment for new and some relocated. So then from there, we were also doing interviews with the dietary staff and the Office for the Aging staff, as well as the Health Consortium eventually, to ascertain what the needs were for all of their space, what their growth need would be projected, and so we could put them into appropriate space where they weren't sharing offices where that wasn't appropriate. And we put together a program of all the things that were needed, not only in the kitchen, but for the office function as well. And kind of built the feasibility study around the program. And so we ended up with a building initially that was significantly larger than the two spaces. The kitchen is growing about 50%. The Office for the Aging is not that big a growth, but again, getting them into a place where you're not cannibalizing the conference room you used to have and the storeroom that you used to have. So next. So the ground floor is the new kitchen is on the right, with the furthest to the right is the all the storage and the freezer capacity, and the walk-in coolers are there. And you can see from top to bottom here, the top is the outgoing, will go into vans. The tables represent some of the cook lines and tray lines that are needed, and then they get assembled and staged just outside the vestibule to the top. The kitchen itself is kind of multifunctional in that it needs to accommodate cook lines and cold lines and the storage of the dairy products, and we've got ovens and kettles and various ways to cook the food so that you can provide a very diverse meal plan for the residents. We do have a few offices for the people who need to be part of the kitchen operation and people who are part of the administration of that and may have some contact with the public. And they also run a congregate dining area where people can come in. And so we're planning on having that, and that would be accessible to the outdoors. So if they wanted to do a patio or barbecues for special events, that kind of thing, it works for that. But now the building is more than just the dietary. So the front side of the building, the left side, has an elevator which would access the second floor. We now have stair towers. And so we have washrooms for the public and staff that serve the dining area. And then when you go upstairs, you'll see we have ways to segregate the flow of people to whether it's going to the health consortium or the office for the aging. So the next one should be our upper floor plan. Space program for just the upper floor. And the next will be the plan of it. So we've devised a plan that provides shared washrooms, but you'll see kind of prominently in the plan, 2 fairly large conference rooms, one for each of the programs. The circulation connects so that if things change, one group gets smaller, another group grows, you can move those boundaries a little bit to give you some flexibility in the future. But we have storerooms in the middle. We have kitchenette for each side. And when people come in, they get a little area to kind of orient themselves. They can move toward the top of the plan for the health consortium, or move to the bottom of the plan for the office for the aging. And we did interviews and toured all the spaces and looked at who needed privacy, who was meeting with larger groups of people, who needed to keep some files in their office, so that the office layout is modulated to reflect the need for that. They also, each side has a copy area and some sub-waiting for various groups that come in. So anyways, that's the seating area for the office for the aging is down at the bottom.
See an elevator. This is a 2-story building.
Yes.
Second floor.
With the possibility of basement.
Yes.
Yes, and the elevator would serve the basement as well. And so that was obviously an important piece. So the next slide should be some quick elevation studies that we did. The idea is to use, the town has encouraged not a monolithic kind of elevation. So we've done some panels, some siding, that will try to modulate that, and a fair amount of glass, so that when you're inside the facility, that's something that they don't get now, certainly at the nutritional center. There's no windows that get you access to natural light. Obviously, they have light at the office building downtown, but wanted to kind of keep that as a signature of the building, is that people who are either there for dining or working or visiting are in an area that is served by a lot of natural light. We are up against the height restriction in the town, and so we could have put a much taller roof on this, but we're trying to stay below, I believe it's 35 feet is what the town is requesting. But they also request this more varied elevation approach. The project schedule, I had us starting, well, it runs from, so to get you start to finish is a couple years. If you count the design time, the bidding and award of the project, and then construction administration, we had going for a little more than a full year, from the second quarter, doesn't matter which year it was, but second quarter through the end of the year and through the second quarter of the next year. I would say I read material that comes into my office. Electrical gear, the lead time on electrical gear is a year. So all the struggles we went through the last couple of years getting steel and wood and these other things, they've calmed down and the prices leveled out or come down. But certain things are remaining very difficult to procure. So if you've got some heavy duty electrical gear, you're going to wait a year. And that's just the way it is.
HVAC is at least 6 months.
Huh?
HVAC is at least 6 months.
Right.
Bigger stuff.
Big stuff. So depending on when you're ready to start the project, understand that you're not at the end. You're kind of at the beginning again. And so we've got to go through approvals, get the project design, and then get it out to bid. And then obviously all the county rules would apply. And I don't know if there's any state rules that would apply if you're getting state money for this or federal money for this. That can kick in a lot of other regulations that sometimes you wish you hadn't done it. So,
That access on the 9H has been approved already.
It has not been approved by the we did get input indicating that we did not see an issue as far as issuing a permit, but again, the project would have to go through a formal application.
I believe the project has had access to 9H.
The parcel has.
Or historically. And all of the commercial properties along there have obviously driveways. I don't see the level of service being inhibited in any way on 9H. It's well traveled, but it's not, it's not a bumper to bumper situation ever. So I don't think will affect the utilization of it. The last thing I have is the estimate. And so in the estimate, we've included the various systems that go into the building and historic and projected costs. We've got separate numbers for so the building itself was projected at being under 9 million. Site work and stormwater being about $1.3 million. The kitchen equipment is 1.4 million, and then to that we add soft costs, which is the fees and testing and stuff that you have to go through, and a contingency that hopefully heads off inflation for you. I'm not sure we want to revisit the number as we get closer to when you want to pull the trigger on this. We've added the basement as a separate item, which came in at a little under 900,000. So the the total is roughly 15.5 million for the whole development, and that's everything. So it's the site work, it's the building, it's the kitchen equipment, it's the furnishings, it's all the stuff that has to go into this building.
So you had a mention of a flat roof. Is that for your height?
Well, we kept the pitch fairly low.
I mean, they don't usually work too well here in the Northeast.
Yeah, no, I don't.
The school.
Our original concept of the building was metal, pitch metal roofs, which last a long time. And
So it's height restriction?
Correct.
There's no variances?
Well, there's a possibility, yeah. So, one of the items that I was gonna mention is, again, the feasibility study is the starting point.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's to provide the architectural renderings that are provided are a vision of what the building could look like. Obviously, that would have to be developed. And as part of that process, the county could go to the town, have discussions with the town as far as obtaining any type of variance, as far as a height restriction.
I just couldn't see going into a flat roof though. We're spending millions on trying to fix the ones that we have. Never mind.
this building is sloped roof as we showed you.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's not a 12 and 12 or anything. It's, but it is all metal roof is what's in the estimate, so that you're not dealing with flat roofs that you don't get 20
In the
years out.
design, has there been, anything taken in for like all your coolers and everything, right? Is there anything put in there that we're gonna take the heat off those coolers and be able to use it to heat the building? Like what type of efficiency has been built into this? Have we got to that point yet?
Well, we're not really at that point, but
We're using heat from these coolers and different things to heat the building.
yeah, there's a heat recovery system
Yeah.
on the roof, and actually on the back end of the building. And that will give us the ability to recycle that heat.
The other thing was the kitchen equipment, that 1.4 million. Is there a breakout on it?
Yes.
Yes, there
Yes.
was a breakout.
And that's all new equipment?
Yeah.
Has there been anything as far as, today there's a lot of used restaurant equipment out, or basically
Yeah, there is now.
brand new, you know what I mean? That you can buy, you can go to a lot of different places.
Well, and depending on how we put it out to bid, we could open the door to various vendors if they have access to lightly used equipment. Because you're right, that there are lots of restaurants that went out of business during COVID, so there's a lot of material available in the marketplace. But I think you want to have, top-notch,
Sure.
really good equipment.
Is the floor where you said you can modulate on the top, right? You said you can move offices around, so
Yeah.
basically that's just, there's no bearing walls
No,
in there at all?
it's a structural frame, so that none of the walls are bearing other than the outside wall.
Same thing on the first floor, is that?
Yes.
Correct. Correct. So any of that stuff could be moved around without us having to.
Yeah.
When you're talking about, actually, when you were in the discussion, you said 400,000 for the equipment. I think you meant
No, I misspoke.
Yeah, okay. So, that includes what? Does that include the hoods? Does that include the epoxy floors? Does that include like everything to do with the shelving, what is the 1.4? Is that just equipment cost?
Yeah, primarily. So it does include the hood. It includes all the ovens and kettles and steamers and, it's all detailed.
Go back up, Kelly.
What's that?
It was spelled out.
It was a list.
Yeah.
But it wasn't broken in.
It's a list of all the equipment. It does include the wire shelving and that stuff, the beverage dispensers. It's all in there. And like I say, one of the things we need to adjust is when you get close to doing this, it may be that there's a plan out there that can reuse more of what you have. because over the next 2 years, potentially you're gonna keep replacing equipment. So there'll be new stuff that we haven't seen, that wants to come to the new building. But you've got to be careful that you can operate, at pretty good efficiency until the day you move.
Would we calculate the parking spaces? You come up with that yet?
Yeah, we did a number of studies. There are, we had to come up with parking for the offices, which is done on a kind of per thousand kind of square feet idea. The kitchen itself has, I forget, 18 to 20 staff members. You have drivers, you have vans that have to be somewhere overnight, stay there. So the drivers come in, they park their car, they pick up a van, and then they leave. So it kept adding on to it. Scott, did you have the
healthcare consortium has all of that as well too. We added quite a bit for when we brought the healthcare consortium in because they all have cars and that's what they do. You know,
I know, I just wanted to make sure that we want to make a change to the upstairs floor and more office space or whatever, that we're gonna have enough.
Yeah, I think that was one of the site advantages.
Correct, that was one of the site advantages, as well as its proximity to the fire training center. Because again, there's a large parking area there that's underutilized the majority of the time, other than when they're having classes and so forth. So the thought process is, again, generally speaking, that would be available for people to go ahead and drop off their vehicle and pick up, again, whether it's the health consortium.
But there's just not enough on that lot to create more parking spots, is that what you're saying?
Oh, no, there is more space
On
On the
upper,
on the 6 acres, there is.
the upper lot. You can expand the building, you can expand the parking. That's one of the big advantages of being up on the 6 acre rectangular site is.
we did expand it a couple times, but then the price was scared.
No, I'm just poking down,
Yeah, no.
you don't want to build a building like this and then have somebody have to go ahead and walk 2 miles.
No,
in a
no.
car, you know.
You've got availability there. And there's a lot of parking there.
Yeah, I think the way the plan looks, the blue line is like the setback line, so we could double the parking out front and double it in the back. Just to give you an
The
idea.
septic system, and all that, did that turn out to be, remember, we talked a little bit about that, is that gonna be a pump system, or would that be able to work out? We're pretty much in line with the.
We'd be able to do gravity, to get down to the granite.
And we could definitely get natural gas on that site.
I've actually been in discussions with, there's an issue because, natural gas is served by National Grid. However, the boundary of their, service area actually goes up into, NICE's. So there has to be an agreement between the two parties that would allow National Grid to enter into their spot. And that's why there's no gas currently at the cul-de-sac of Brandon Drive as far as the fire training center.
Would that then be able to add?
The potential, yeah, because we would obtain the gas coming down Grand and May.
Okay.
And then into that, that side road that heads to the new building. So if that's being done, there is the ability to then tie in the fire training center.
Right. Is this building built out of wood or steel or?
Steel.
Steel. So the
Steel frame,
structure's all
steel studs.
inside, okay.
Brenda?
What attention, if any, has been given to energy efficiency or green building construction?
Pardon?
What attention has been given to green building or energy conservation?
Well, we haven't embedded it in the numbers just yet, but obviously it's an open site. And it has we have the ability to do solar south facing. We have the ability to do EV chargers. We have potentially the ability to do thermal heat pumps, geothermal heat pumps. So I can't say that that's all baked into the numbers, but usually that's a number that you get to by getting grants for the building.
But it also can add 15 to 20% to your base building cost when we're talking about materials and
It
insulation.
can, so I wouldn't put it in without the grants being a better known quantity. But I think the building will be much more efficient than the building you're currently operating in Philmont.
I don't think that would be hard.
I set the bar low. But so, I mean, in the 20 to 30 years since that equipment was installed, the new equipment is worlds apart in terms of the efficiency. I think it would be in your best interest to lock in the gas service while you can. The kitchen is very difficult to operate on all electric. The ovens and other things that we have are primarily gas fired, and but we'll also need a decent electrical service for all the coolers and freezers and stuff. But to do a kitchen all electric it's a premium for sure.
Supervisor Chase.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I appreciate it and the detail that you're showing. Can you talk a little bit about how Healthcare Consortium was chosen as the secondary user of the site?
I can speak to that.
You're gonna talk about it?
Yeah, I can speak to it.
So currently, the Health Consortium actually shares the same floor space as far as the second floor of the 325 Columbia. So again, the fact that they tend to work on similar clientele, we thought it was a natural progression to include them. And that would free up a lot of space within 325 for other uses, other departments to be able to move into that space. But the main reason was, again, they currently work together. Initially, they were not considered as far as the original request for proposal. But once we started developing and working with CPL to develop that overall floor plan, it was recognized that, if I remember correctly, the first reiteration had the kitchen being the entire first floor, office space for the staff of the Office of the Aging be on the second floor, and not utilizing the entire second floor. So again, recognizing that it'd be cheaper to go ahead and build vertically versus horizontally, how do we take advantage of additional space? And so therefore, that's how the Health Consortium came into play.
And then, are there people that use Health Consortium now that would have difficulty getting to the site in camps?
In most instances, the Health Consortium is actually creating or providing the shuttle transfer, if you would, transportation services and so forth. So in many instances, it's actually the staff picking up a Health Consortium vehicle, going out to a location, picking up the person, bringing them back to the office. So it's not anticipated that that would be a hardship on that. And again, the other potential could be the fact of looking at the transportation plan as a whole and whether you bring public transportation out of this location as well.
And then what are the thoughts around what happens at 325 with the extra space?
So initially, my thought has been, as I very briefly outlined in the plan that I prepared as the comprehensive plan for all the facilities, I would be looking at actually moving staff out of 610 and those offices out of 610 into that space for 325. Ultimately, the goal would be to then sell 610 because of the age of the building, the amount of work that needs to be done, and the investment that has to be done into that particular building. But that initially, that's the intent.
And then did you consider making this construction project even larger and then including additional apartments?
We wanted to, in looking at it, I didn't want to overwhelm the overall cost. Again, we're looking at a very large project as it is right now. And so recognizing what I believe made sense for that space, what made sense for that location and the offices that tend to work together regarding clientele and so forth, I didn't want to expand it to an astronomical number and facility that would be very difficult to support long-term. So yeah, we try to create a cap on it.
This project alone, with being able to eventually get rid of 610, and the nutrition center, we're getting rid of two buildings that, we're going to have to put a significant amount of money in if we don't get rid of them.
But don't the dollars per square foot go down if you once you have your foundation in place, it's cheaper to build more offices on one foundation than it is to build multiple buildings.
Yes, agreed. And again, that's one of the reasons that we thought it'd be a good idea to bring the health consortium in to, again, build vertically. Because again, there's a large amount of infrastructure put into as far as the overall site plan as well as the foundation. But we also recognize that there's a limit to how much we can actually build.
So I just had a recent experience. Does the grand jury always meet at 325?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
And there's a parking issue there.
There really is. I'm serving on the grand jury and we started an hour late because people couldn't find places to
Right.
park. So,
Correct.
That was one of the thoughts on moving the healthcare consortium. They occupy a lot of parking spaces at 325 as well. And the same with this parking lot here that's no longer going to be used pretty soon. So, you know, collectively, that was a good thought to get rid of all the parking now.
No, but any reuse of 325 would have to consider that that's a pretty permanent fixture at 325, right? The grand jury.
Not necessarily. Again, currently, they're a fixture there.
But there's
However,
not another location for it at the moment.
not at the moment. No, agreed. However, that being said, there are some other vacant lots. So again, there's another vacant lot located on Columbia. And so perhaps there's the ability of speaking with that landowner to develop a parking area there. And again, as I had identified in that master plan, it wouldn't be just a single tiered parking. It would actually be double. So that would double up the amount of capacity. And again, that way we could potentially shuttle, or people can then walk down from 325 up to that particular location as far as the parking lot.
And just in terms of common customers or stakeholders, so we feel the stakeholder connection is closer between OFA and Healthcare Consortium than it is between the Healthcare Consortium and the Health Department.
That's the feedback that I had received in speaking with both the Health Consortium as well as the Office of the Aging when those preliminary meetings were taking place and those interviews.
Supervisor Muslim tries to put her hand up.
Yeah.
Difficulty seeing the monitors, but it looks like there's parking all around the building. Is that true?
It's parking on three sides of the building. Yeah.
I mean, is there a, like, does the building actually face something and says, this is me, this is where I want you to enter, what's it feel like? Or are we creating a parking lot or so much parking diminishing the ability to have a building have a statement? I mean, it seemed like there was a lot of parking around it.
Yeah, we have a single row or double row, I should say, of parking in front of the building, but that's fairly modest. And we were very much aware that we wanted the building to have a presence on 9H. That's the entrance. That's where the major entrance would be. But we wanted to kind of meet the paradigm that when visitors come, they know where to park, they know where to enter. But the building is of a size enough to have presence on 9H. The parking in the back and the side is significant. But I think the real issue is there. We didn't want the public looking at our trucks backed up to loading docks and that kind of thing. About the parking, the first time I went out to film
Parking
it,
seems to be the most, I mean, the building is the presence and the parking lot seems to diminish the building. That's just, I mean, it just seems like a lot of cars around a building. And if there's a way to make that so that the building has more of a presence rather than the cars, I think it would be a much more better looking, more inviting.
Do you have some slides in the front of the building, maybe if we?
And I realize you're not, I know this isn't design, this is just a
Concept.
concept,
Yes.
so it's just
Agreed. Thank you. And
my
I,
2 cents.
yeah, no, and greatly appreciated. And that's
Or
one
could
of,
it be closer to 9H and more, just, I think the car issue becomes, it looks like a mall going shopping rather than we're getting a service.
so we could redesign the parking to do a loop that would open up the corner of the building with no parking, just a drop off in front of the front door, and then continue on to a double wide parking lot, a cul-de-sac beyond that. But I think we had thought about landscaping that, and the land rises up, so we have a chance to do a bit of a berm, so you're not looking at all the car bumpers and car headlights.
Is that building as far forward as it can be? I see that says something stormwater. I can't read it. I'm sorry.
No, it actually, so the area in blue, you have the dashed line in blue. So that's the building setback line that's provided under zoning.
Right.
So again, from
That's
the
it.
building, we could actually move that up. But
So you could move the building up and move that. What does that say?
that's proposed, that's proposed.
Stormwater.
Yeah, that's underneath the actual pavement.
Right, so that building could be moved up to the black line where that is, and then put more parking behind.
Correct. But one of the things that we were trying to do when working with CPL was recognize and trying to separate out the staff parking
Right.
and the loading, unloading areas, which tend to be towards the rear of the building. So again, all of those parking spaces to the rear and also to the north tend to be that staff parking and loading and unloading, as well as the vehicles going out on their routes versus the, if you would, client parking, which generally speaking would be closer to the front.
Sure.
But again, as Supervisor Mussman has indicated, at this point, this is a feasibility study. So the purpose of the feasibility study is to identify the potential scope of and breadth of the project, which has expanded from its original concept. In addition to that, providing a vision for the building, which can change and would be developed as a project would continue, to provide a proposed or anticipated schedule, understanding that you're really looking at least a 24-month period from the time you say start to the time construction's completed. And then obviously, as important, is the overall budget as well. But again, this is a starting point. It's not an ending point by any means. Everything would continue to be vetted during a design process.
And that building's what, 25,000 square feet?
Correct.
And could it be made 50? I mean, does the lot support that? I guess is my question.
It could be larger. Again, CPL would have to take a look
I'm
at
just curious
to
if-
what
to
extent,
answer
but it could be,
Michael's question. I mean,
it could be
just on the
larger.
size of the lot,
Yeah, it could be larger. There is room to expand.
the actual footprint.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Are we
would,
gonna get a
I'd-
copy of this presentation?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of information that's being thrown obviously to the supervisors tonight, and the purpose is of providing the information to you. It will be provided in an electronic format for you to then digest and review. We're not asking for any votes or anything like that. Again, it's just the starting point to then at least provide an ability for the supervisor to understand the work that's been done as far as feasibility.
Supervisor,
So there were two elevations, a south elevation and a west elevation. Does the west elevation face 9H?
yes.
It would be visible from 9. So could we just revisit the west elevation slide for one moment? It was the shorter of the two sides.
It's before the schedule,
So it's the color,
or the schedule. It's the color towards the end.
Near the end. There you go. Back.
That's the slide. That's the front. Does that have?
so that would be the view from the front or 9H, yeah, the 9H side of the building.
That could be whatever we want it to be. That's the concept, but.
Correct.
And there would be no lack of interest if we do pursue a basement, right? There'd be
I know.
plenty of suitors for that space, whether it be document storage.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
No
So,
question.
$900,000 seems like a worthy expense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'd say the basement seems like a fairly minimal investment for a large gain.
Just a couple of quick items. I appreciate the input by the supervisors. Obviously, again, it's a starting point for us as far as the project. I do want to mention that the Economic Development Corporation did provide for a phase 1 environmental study as part of their purchase, and there was nothing found during that study. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that as well.
As far as parking, though, this is gonna be a situation where you have really two spots for one employee in some of these cases where
Yes.
people will show up with their personal vehicle and then get in a
Take a
county
company
vehicle.
car.
Correct. And that's one of the reasons we thought about, again, the benefit of actually having the fire training center so close. Because again, other than when they have classes, that may not be a bad location for a drop off for employees that have that county vehicle, where they're going to be dropping off their own vehicle, grabbing the county vehicle, stopping in, grabbing their routes for the day or for the morning or for the afternoon or whatever the case may be, and then going out onto their routes. So that way they're not actually tying up parking actually at the building, but they're in close proximity to it.
And is the first floor as fluid as far as partitioning? Because you mentioned a congregation room. How was the congregation room big enough
Yeah, they
to have
actually,
a soiree for the OFA?
so the congregation room actually had the ability of cording off to make it into smaller spaces. So you could have one large gathering or break it up, I think, into two. I think there are at least 2 or 3 smaller facilities. Again, so that way, perhaps there are classes that are being held or something to that effect.
So
So
it's open to outdoors where there could be a courtyard, there could be an expansion of that too, so.
Great start. Thank you.
Thank you.
appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you. Nice job, Ray.
Very
Appreciate it. EPL, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
John did the heavy.
That's right.
I'm looking for a chip plant, not potato chips. Get your variants ready, Craig.
So when we first went to visit Philmont, I was shocked that I don't know if they have 20 cars. More than that, and staff, and
And watch what happens when a tractor trailer comes with goods every hour or two, you know.
it was amazing tight on parking.
The other thing I wanted to mention on park or availability to this site, I know Ray made a good point about the fact that OFA staff is down here in the city of Hudson and the meals are out there, but the entire operation of the Meals on Wheels program is that they make hundreds of meals a day and need to get them to the homes in a very short period of time. And for those of you that know Philmont very well, it's pretty much geographically in the center of the county, but you can't get there from here. So it's a difficult challenge to get those meals from there to the rest of the county. In this location that we're proposing, you would have much quicker time frame to get the meals to the homes. So.
Philmont, my take on Philmont was every road that goes to Philmont was perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, if there's no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion. Gotta go like this.
Second, John. All in favor?
Gotta go around like a